Wait a minute! You stupid wife! Remember this!
Of course, I have no intention of remembering. Behind me, a noisy woman is clutching her stomach and desperately shouting at me, but I don't care. Besides, this is the first time I've run this hard since becoming an adult. Come to think of it, I was pretty fast on my feet during my school days. That thought crossed my mind. I'm out of breath and it's hard, but strangely, I feel exhilarated. I'm free from now on. My name is Lisa. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. I work in the administrative department of a major corporation. It's not that I have high expectations, but before I knew it, I was not just in my 30s but almost in my 40s. It's not that I don't want to get married, but as my years of service have increased, thankfully so has my salary, and I can live alone if necessary. However, there are times when I feel lonely.
It seems like it's time to seriously consider getting a cat.
While lost in thought during work.
Lisa, you're daydreaming again during work. It's not a good example for your subordinates.
Ryan, a salesperson from a client company, peeked at my face and spoke to me. He's about the same age as me, but looks so young that he could pass for his 20s. My colleagues also said he was handsome.
Spring makes me sleepy.
Let me guess, you ate too much lunch? We've known each other for a long time, so we can joke like this. Watching our interaction, some colleagues teased us, suggesting we should date. I just brushed it off, but then an unexpected event happened.
Lisa, I want you to marry me.
Ryan, who had been waiting for me at the exit after work, suddenly asked me out for a meal. I thought it was his usual joke, especially since we had been drinking, but it seemed he was serious. To be honest, I was a little interested in him, so I was happy to hear that. I asked him to wait a bit for my answer, and then I formally accepted. After we started dating, I began calling him Ryan by his first name. He always brought up new topics and was a great conversationalist, typical of the top salesperson. Since we knew each other from before, we never really had a big fight, and 6 months into the relationship, he proposed to me at a place with a beautiful night view. Of course, I said yes. Little did I know that this man would turn out to be incredible in ways I never imagined. After getting married, my husband was transferred to a department with more business trips.
The salary will be higher, and we'll have a more comfortable life.
I wanted him to stay by my side, but it seemed he had long wished for this transfer, and he was happy about moving to his desired department. He was away from home for half of the month, and even though we were newlyweds,
maybe I should really get a cat.
I started to seriously consider it. Having lived alone for a long time, I had no trouble spending time by myself. With my husband away, there was no need to cook elaborate meals. There were days when I just made simple dishes for dinner. The married life I had imagined when I was single was far different from reality, leaving me feeling a bit empty. My husband earned well, but as we didn't have children, I felt there was nothing for me to do at home, so I continued working.
Aren't you going to have kids?
At a drinking party, a colleague with children sympathetically asked me, but I just laughed it off with a haha. I wanted children sooner rather than later, considering my age, but it seemed my husband felt differently. He said he wanted to cherish our time as a couple, which made me a bit happy, but I also felt anxious. Someone who trampled on my feelings like this intruded. One day, as usual, my husband was on a business trip, and I was quietly having a drink alone when the doorbell rang. Seeing the person on the screen, I couldn't help but let out a sound. I couldn't just ignore it, so I let the person into my room.
Please call before you come, Mia. How many times do I have to tell you?
Not sure if my reluctance showed on my face. You always look so gloomy, Lisa.
Oh, Ryan is not home again? You guys aren't young anymore, shouldn't you be more worried about having kids?
The one who would say such rude things so nonchalantly was my husband's mother, Mia. She barged into the room and finished off the bottle of wine I had opened. Then, without asking, she opened the refrigerator.
Oh, there's some expensive-looking meat.
I can take this, right, Lisa? It was an A5 grade steak I had bought as a treat for myself to cook the next day. Mia, my mother-in-law, would come to our house and pester me for things.
What? No, of course not.
I realized my mistake the moment I said it. Mia's face turned sour quickly.
Huh? Living a life of luxury with my son's earnings, and you can't even share a bit? Sit down.
Once she started, Mia was unstoppable, lecturing me endlessly. She would go on and on about how she raised her son with care, how she was strict to get him into a top university. She detailed the expenses of getting her son through college. Mia said these things, but I heard that it was my father-in-law who worked hard and earned money while Mia had always been a housewife. Maybe her frugality contributed to that. I've been subjected to this talk annoyingly many times. I've tried pretending not to be home, but she would knock on the door until I came out. Sometimes, I had to call my father-in-law to come and get her. Every time I saw him, he looked tired.
Come on, let's go home. Enough is enough.
Watching Mia being dragged away by him, I deeply realized that marriage isn't always about happiness. By the way, the steak was bought with my own money. As if I'd give it to Mia. Every time she appeared, I was glad we weren't living together. Then, one day it happened. I was relaxing on the sofa, sipping coffee on my day off, when…
What? What did you just say?
I couldn't hide my shock at my husband's words.
I said, divorce. My parents, they got divorced.
Tying his tie, my husband told me calmly. According to him, my father-in-law's anger towards Mia finally reached its limit. Of course, Mia refused the divorce. In the end, it turned into quite a battle, each hiring lawyers. The amount Mia demanded for the divorce was much higher than the norm, but my father-in-law agreed to it just to get away from Mia. My father-in-law's family was wealthy, and he himself was an executive of a large company. With that, Mia must have gotten quite a sum.
He always looked so worn out. It's good he's free from Mia now.
As I was thinking this, my husband said,
So, the house was Dad's, and he's already put it on the market.
What will Mia do now? As I was thinking, the doorbell rang. Not Mia again, I thought, but my guess was wrong. A uniformed delivery person stood there. I thought it was a courier and opened the door, but Mia was there with the delivery person. Confused.
Where should we take the stuff?
The delivery person asked, and Mia barged in. Please take it to the back room, she said. Thanks for agreeing to live together, Ryan.
You're such a wonderful son of mine.
I was completely left out. In no time, the spare room, which had been used for storage, was filled with her belongings, and it was transformed into Mia's living space.
What? I haven't heard anything about this. I can't just accept sudden cohabitation.
If it were the kind Mia, it wouldn't be a problem. But this Mia was different. As I desperately refused, both of them looked at me with puzzled faces.
Isn't it all the same whether we live together now or in the future? You'll take care of Mom then, Lisa.
My husband said such an absurd thing. Apparently, taking care of Mia was a foregone conclusion for me.
Absolutely not. This is ridiculous.
I'll divorce.
This is crazy. Stop making fun of me.
To this, they both started laughing at me as if I was a joke. Divorce? Try it. You'll be the pathetic one, you know?
You should be thankful I even married a leftover like you.
Hit with such harsh words, I felt everything go dark before my eyes. My husband said he married me for his social status. As he got older, more people around him were married, and marriage was a status symbol in society. He chose me because of my decent looks and good reputation, and he thought I seemed obedient, he said with a laugh at the end.
I'll never sign the divorce papers. Well, I'm off on a business trip again, so I'm leaving now.
Saying this, he left the house humming, leaving behind both me and the detested Mia. Watching me stand there dumbfounded, Mia said,
"How pitiful, a woman unloved by men."
She retorted, laughing at me.
"You're one to talk, having been divorced yourself."
That's what I said. Mia screamed, but I couldn't afford to waste my energy on this woman. I locked myself in my room, pondering how to get a divorce in my favor. I searched the internet, but my husband hadn't done anything particularly wrong. At most, he had the crazy Mia. Not even cheating. As I thought this, Mia banged on my room door so fiercely I thought it would break.
"Come on! Get out here now!"
Wondering what was happening, I came out to find several delicious-looking dishes on the table. Thinking Mia had prepared the meal, I sat down. Well, she's a bit nice after all. Just then,
"Hey! What are you sitting down for? Pay up!"
I looked where Mia was pointing and saw a confused delivery man at the door. Dumbfounded by Mia's stupidity, I said,
"I won't pay for it."
Then I returned to my room and locked the door. She screamed outside for a while, but eventually quieted down. Seems like she paid for it herself. Good. From then on, Mia and I hardly exchanged words. I've heard of married couples living like strangers, but what was this relationship? I even thought about such trivial matters. My husband's visits home became even less frequent, and when he did come home, he and Mia would be having a party-like time. I was quietly preparing for divorce. The more I researched, the more shocking secrets about my foolish husband came to light. He was truly Mia's son. A real piece of work. Mia never cooked, relying on delivery for every meal. And she ordered a lot. Given her large size, it made sense. Once, I prepared a meal for Mia, but she threw it away, plate and all. When I found it, I was so frustrated I cried. Mia had always been stingy with money since the beginning of our marriage. Extremely reluctant to spend more than necessary. She had no problem coveting others' belongings. Once, after a bath, I was eating ice cream when she barged in unannounced.
"I'll take one of those,"
she said, and shamelessly ate one of the 2 ice creams in the package. A greedy and unpleasant person. I continued this life for nearly a year. Although Mia and I were living together, we barely saw each other, so it wasn't too hard. I considered moving out, but I didn't want to be seen as running away. More than that, the thought of the 2 of them falling into hell made me giddy.
"Mia."
One day, when I suddenly spoke to her, Mia involuntarily shuddered.
"What do you want? How about we go out for dinner together? Unlimited high-end lobster. Plus, it's unlimited time right now."
At my suggestion, Mia, always eager for a meal, was immediately interested.
"I'll go, but you're paying, right?"
As always, she was presumptuous, but I answered with a smile.
"Of course."
Once Mia knew it was on me, she began ordering one dish after another at the restaurant.
"I'll take 5 servings of premium lobster, same for shrimp and scallops."
And then, like a black hole, Mia devoured the meat continuously. Other customers glanced and whispered, laughing at her. I get it. She's practically a cow herself. Here's where my plan hit a snag. I intended to leave Mia at the restaurant and return home early, but she protested.
"Eating alone is embarrassing."
That's what she said.
I think you're embarrassing enough already.
In the end, Mia, taking advantage of the unlimited time offer, silently ate meat for 3 hours. She even ate the meat I grilled, leaving me with only about 5 pieces. After 3 hours of that, when it was time to pay, the server said with a forced smile, "We look forward to seeing you again." But his eyes weren't smiling. He probably hoped never to see such a customer again.
Well, that was an okay restaurant.
I was infuriated that her first comment was that, after eating and drinking on someone else's dime. I was thinking of where to take her next when suddenly,
ouch!
Mia collapsed, sweating profusely, and in obvious pain.
What happened? Are you giving birth? Don't joke at a time like this.
The cause of her stomach pain was obvious. In extreme pain, Mia panicked.
Hurry, this is serious. Call an ambulance, quickly.
I thought the real problem was her head and stomach, but to avoid further embarrassment from her loud cries, I did as she said and called an ambulance. Fortunately, it arrived in about 15 minutes. By then, Mia had quieted down, but she was crouching and holding her stomach in pain.
What happened?
The paramedic asked.
My stomach hurts.
Mia could barely speak.
We'll take her to a nearby hospital. Are you her daughter? Son's wife? Please come with us.
The paramedic asked me, but I replied,
Son's wife?
No.
I know her, but she's practically a stranger now. I think her stomach pain is because she ate meat nonstop for 3 hours at that lobster place.
I explained emotionlessly.
3 hours. I see.
The paramedic's face twisted in disbelief.
Well, I have urgent matters to attend to, so I'll leave now. Her son is around, so please contact him,
I said and ran off as fast as I could. From behind,
Wait! You stupid wife, remember this!
I heard Mia shout, but of course, I had no intention of remembering. I hurried home. When I arrived, the movers I had arranged were there too, and I left the house with my packed belongings. A few hours later, my mobile phone was bombarded with calls from my husband. The hospital must have contacted him.
Hey Lisa! What are you doing? Mom is in trouble.
What am I doing now? I'm sitting on my new sofa, elegantly drinking coffee. I retorted.
Don't joke! I came home and your stuff is gone, and there's a divorce petition. I'll never sign it.
My husband was furious, but I said,
Then it'll be through lawyers. You should receive the official documents soon. You have plenty of women, so it shouldn't be a problem, right?
As I laughed, he whispered,
Huh.
in a small voice. I had hired a detective agency to gather information on my husband for a favorable divorce. And what a surprise! One evidence after another came out. I quickly found out about a woman he was involved with in Chicago. Just as I thought that was it, there was a woman in Los Angeles, then New Orleans, and recently Denver. The number was so high that my female lawyer and I joked.
Where do you think the next one will be?
I bet Atlanta. We even had the luxury to guess the next affair location. After all this, gathering evidence against him took a lot of time and money, but thinking about him going to hell made it all seem worth it. I hated my husband that much. I didn't leave that house because I wanted to save on rent. It was also a part of my small pride, a determination not to lose. I planned to demand a security deposit for the divorce lawsuit from all the women involved, but it turned out my husband had pretended to be single. I thought he was the lowest of the low. However, one of the women he deceived reported his misdeeds to the company where he worked. As a result, he was demoted to a minor subsidiary and, with his pride wounded, he quit the company. It seemed the matter with the women was settled through settlements. I heard it cost a pretty penny. I thought, serves him right, from the bottom of my heart. Eventually, our divorce was successfully finalized. I made sure he paid the full amount I had asked for the divorce security deposit. The source of the money? He had to sell his stocks and savings from before we were married, and it still wasn't enough. Most of it was paid by Mia, my ex-mother-in-law. Despite receiving a substantial amount from her ex-husband during their divorce, it seemed she had nearly run out of money. She must have been shocked to see her son in such a mess after she got out of the hospital. Good riddance. By the way, Mia's stomach pain turned out to be appendicitis, not food poisoning. Seems like her stomach is just as unbelievable as ever. Mia always focused on academic credentials, but I thought she should have taught her son other important lessons. As for my ex-husband, his final choice of woman was, disgustingly, a colleague from my workplace. It was the same married colleague who kept nagging me. Aren't you going to have kids? Having an affair with someone else's husband while being married herself, how foolish. I made sure to demand a security deposit from her. But this colleague hadn't realized she was just one of many, and their relationship ended quickly. It seems she got divorced too. Once, on my way to work, I saw my ex-husband and Mia in shabby clothes. The once handsome man had lost his hair due to stress, looking like a defeated samurai. Almost unrecognizable, appearing in his 50s. Mia, once so plump, had lost a lot of weight. They both looked like they were living on the streets. It was none of my business. As for me, I continued working but requested a transfer to an affiliate company. Thankfully, my take-home pay remained the same, and I continued my previous lifestyle. One thing has changed. When I come home and say, "I'm back," two adorable cats come to greet me, twining around my feet.
Wait a bit, I'll feed you soon.
A friend was looking for a home for two sibling cats, and I finally got my long-desired pets. For them, I moved to a pet-friendly apartment. Every day is now a storm of affection. For now, I've had enough of marriage. I plan to spend my days happily with these cute cats.
From now on, my daughter and her husband will live in this house, so you need to leave.
Suddenly, Rosa, was told by my MIL Loretta to leave the house. To add insult to injury, my husband Arnold handed me a piece of paper.
Huh? What's this? You'll understand once you see it. It's a divorce application.
Originally, this house was purchased with my savings. Arnold, who only works part-time, couldn't possibly afford it with his monthly income. Despite Loretta and Arnold wanting to live together, I complied with their request. Why do I have to suffer like this? Well, all right. I understand. As I said this, the two of them were overjoyed.
Now, at last, the nuisance is gone from this house. I didn't expect her to leave so easily.
These people are definitely going to hell. Just you wait, I'll make sure you two are the only ones who won't have it good. 3 years ago, I married Arnold, who I initially met at the same trading company. After getting married, I resigned, but there was a reason for this. While working as an employee at the trading company, I often drew illustrations as a hobby and posted them on social media. At some point, my work caught attention on social media, and I started receiving many requests for illustrations, making up to $10,000 a month at times. I've finally started to make some good money recently. Really? That's great. Hope you can keep earning steadily. While saying this, Arnold supported me in continuing my illustration work remotely, and our married life was going quite smoothly. 5 years into our marriage, just when I started thinking about buying our own home, Arnold was laid off. It was due to personnel downsizing amid the recent economic downturn. I've worked so hard for the company, and this is how they repay me. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say to Arnold, who was apologizing to me in tears. All I could do was to stay by his side until he calmed down. A month later, Arnold started a part-time night job at a nearby grocery store, but his income drastically decreased, earning only about $700 a month. I have to work even harder. Since then, I've taken on even more projects, and our savings have significantly increased. With this much, we can afford our own home. Another year passed, and I decided to consult Arnold about buying our dream home. Hey, should we buy our own home soon? But, I don't earn much.
Leave that part to me. We've saved enough, it's all good.
Arnold, looking somewhat apologetic, responded to my confident declaration.
Well, I know this might sound strange to ask, but could we get a house where my mom can live with us too? Dad's passed away, and more importantly, her house is getting old. She even mentioned that if we're building a house, we should live together.
Arnold's father had passed away from a heart attack when Arnold was in elementary school. I was grateful to Loretta and understood Arnold's feelings towards her.
All right. Got it. Let's respect Loretta's and your wishes and get a house where we can all live together.
And so, Arnold, Loretta, and I visited a house builder and signed the contract for our dream home. The interior was largely influenced by Loretta's and Arnold's preferences. I would have preferred it in my own style, but oh well. If the two of them are happy, that's all that matters. That's what I thought, never imagining I'd be betrayed in such a manner. About 10 months after signing for the house, it was finally completed. I even set up a study for work, and it's so comfortable, my illustration work is going well.
Rosa, thank you for building such a wonderful home.
It's absolutely fine. I'm always grateful for your help. Loretta seemed really pleased too, constantly thanking me, and I was truly glad to see her happy. Life in the new home was smooth at first, but after 3 months, Loretta's attitude towards me changed.
Hey, can you clean my room a bit? I'm a bit busy right now. Busy? But you're just cooped up in your room doing nothing, right? Arnold's been complaining that you don't work properly.
Not working properly? What has Arnold been seeing to say such a thing? After all, this house was built because I worked hard and earned the money. I wanted to retort to Loretta, but thinking that perhaps Arnold hadn't said such a thing, I endured and reluctantly decided to clean her room as she asked. While I was cleaning, Loretta didn't help at all and just relaxed comfortably. After about an hour of cleaning, when I was nearly done, I spoke to Loretta.
Oh. Finally finished, I see. I'll be expecting this regularly from now on, thank you.
Okay. I was too appalled to say anything. Why should I have to act like your maid? Loretta's remarks were infuriating, but what angered me more was the thought of Arnold. Did he really say I don't work? I decided to confront him about it at dinner.
By the way, I heard from Loretta that you've been complaining about me not working. Well, I did mention it a bit. My sister is working hard at the factory, part-time. Sweating it out to earn her keep, and you're always at home, right? Just seemed a bit unfair, you know?
Arnold has an older sister named Olive, 2 years his senior. Olive has a 3-year-old child and gets along well with her husband. Our relationship is pretty good, exchanging messages occasionally. Still, I couldn't believe Arnold actually harbored such thoughts. Hearing Arnold's true feelings left me in shock. I thought he was on my side. From the next day, Loretta's treatment of me became even harsher. It started with just cleaning, but gradually escalated to give me a massage and make me some coffee, treating me like a complete maid. Arnold, as usual, had no intention of looking for a full-time job. Hey, isn't it about time you find a full-time job?
Quiet. You're earning well, right? Then it's fine.
Between Arnold's refusal to listen and Loretta's daily demands, my mental state was reaching its limit. Olive, I'm at my breaking point. Please help me.
Are you okay?
After enduring this life for 3 months, I sought help from Olive, who acted promptly and sternly addressed Arnold and Loretta. Thanks to Olive, the harassment subsided for about 2 weeks. Then, one evening, as I was washing the dishes after dinner, Arnold said he needed to talk.
What about?
Just wait.
I've called Mom, so sit down and wait.
What on earth am I about to be told? I waited on the living room sofa for Loretta and Arnold, feeling frightened. Sorry to keep you waiting. Arnold said you wanted to talk. As I said this, Loretta and Arnold exchanged glances and smirked maliciously. Then Loretta slowly started to speak.
This house, it's going to be Olive's family living here. So could you leave? LOL. What?
What are they talking about all of a sudden? Confused by the situation, I was just shocked by Loretta's words.
Hey, you listening to Mom's words? LOL and this. Huh? What's this?
Arnold handed me a piece of paper. When I unfolded the half-folded paper, I realized it was a divorce application. I had no idea what Loretta and Arnold were up to.
You see? It's a divorce application.
Arnold watched my reaction with a laugh. But why must I go through this? I worked hard to buy this house with my own money.
What's going on with you two all of a sudden?
I appreciate that you bought this house. But the thing is, Arnold has been suffering because you earn more than him. A person who can't show respect to her husband doesn't belong in this house. So, we thought of letting Olive live here instead.
Yeah, that's right. You've been having it too good, and honestly, I've been irritated. It's not like I wanted to quit my job, but you kept nagging me to find work. I was sick of it.
I see. So, that's why they've been so harsh to me. I'm utterly dismayed by such childish reasoning. Since I bought the house with my earnings, I wanted to tell them they should be the ones to leave. But I'm tired of dealing with them.
Ha. Okay, I understand. So, I should leave, right? Wow. That was quick. With you gone, the nuisance is out of the way, and we can live comfortably.
When I agreed to leave, the two of them were ecstatic, holding hands and rejoicing. If that's how they want it, I'll show them. Just you watch. I'll make sure they get what they deserve. At that moment, I decided to seek revenge against the two of them. The next morning, I packed the bare minimum and left the house. Loretta and Arnold saw me off, but they didn't seem to feel sad at all.
Make sure you file the divorce papers properly, will you? LOL. Just thinking about not having to see your face anymore is refreshing. We'll take good care of this house, so don't worry.
They said whatever they wanted. Don't worry, I won't let you have your way any longer. After leaving the house, I immediately called Olive.
Hello? Olive? Hello. What's up?
Well, actually, I told Olive that I had been kicked out of the house by Loretta and Arnold. I also mentioned that they said Olive's family would be moving into the house in my place.
What? What's going on? Can we meet and talk about this right now?
It seemed like Olive was hearing about this for the first time. As she suggested, I headed to a nearby cafe to discuss the details. 5 minutes after I arrived at the cafe, Olive entered.
Sorry for the sudden call.
No, it's totally fine. Besides, I don't have a home to return to anymore. I said it a bit self-deprecatingly, and Olive's expression became serious.
About that. I haven't heard anything about this from Mom or Arnold, and I honestly had no idea. My husband and I were actually planning to build a house somewhere else.
Really? You didn't know? I had no idea. This was surprising. So Arnold and Loretta lied about Olive moving in, just to kick me out. Well, then there's no need to leave that house to him. I'm relieved to hear that. I was actually thinking about selling the house. Even if you were really moving in. This settles it. I'll make sure those two don't get to enjoy it.
Yeah, those two have gotten way too cocky. Rosa, you do what you think is best. I definitely can't defend them after all this.
It felt good to talk to Olive. I'm glad I could talk to you, Olive. Thank you. After leaving the cafe, I went to the courthouse and first submitted the divorce papers. Then, I headed to a real estate agent and told them I wanted to sell the land and the house, handing over the deed. Those two, unaware of this, are probably living carelessly. Every time I think of their faces, I get infuriated. According to the real estate agent, due to the good location and the newness of the building, a buyer should be found quickly.
Please contact me when it's sold. I'll be staying at my parents' house for a while.
I left the rest to the real estate agent and went back to my parents' house. When I returned to my parents' house after an hour's drive, my parents were there to welcome me. But they were very surprised as their daughter had returned home so suddenly. 2 weeks later, I received a phone call. It seems there was a prospective buyer for the house. They wanted to view the house as soon as possible, and it was scheduled for the upcoming weekend.
Can I join you on that day? As a former resident, I think I can guide them through every corner of the house more thoroughly.
When I proposed this to the real estate agent, they immediately contacted the prospective buyer, and the reply was, "We would appreciate that very much." Ah, your happy life is about to end. I can't stop smiling, imagining their panicked faces. And then, the day of the viewing arrived. As the real estate agent opened the front door, Arnold rushed out in a panic.
"Who are you? I'll call the police!"
Arnold yelled angrily, which intimidated the real estate agent, but I spoke up from behind.
"Don't worry about him. He has no right to say such things." "Huh? Rosa, what's going on?"
Ignoring Arnold, I led the prospective buyer and the real estate agent into the house.
"So, this is the living room."
While I was guiding them through the house, Arnold came to interfere with us, raising his voice again.
"Hey! Wait! What the hell is going on here?"
Hearing the commotion, Loretta also arrived. Ah, this is so annoying.
"What are you doing here? I'll call the police."
The police? Huh, go ahead and call them. This house isn't yours anymore.
"I'm really sorry for the disturbance during the viewing. I'll just go and talk to those two, so please feel free to look around. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask."
With that, I took Arnold and Loretta outside to explain the situation. Arnold's face was red with anger.
"You were talking about a viewing or something, but why is our house being viewed?" "Yeah. It's shocking that you just showed up like this."
They still don't understand the situation. Then, I'll tell them everything.
"Our house? What nonsense are you talking about? Listen, I bought this house. My name is the only one on the deed. Also, I talked to Olive. And the story about Olive's family moving into this house was a lie, wasn't it?" The plan changed suddenly. That happens all the time. Do you think that excuse will work? I spoke directly with Olive and confirmed it. The story you told, Olive had never heard of it before.
As I said this to them, they bit their lower lips and became speechless.
Also, I'll tell you who those people are. I sold this house. So now, the rights to this house belong neither to me nor to you, but to the real estate agency. That's why there are prospective buyers viewing the house today. Do you understand now? But that's so selfish. What about where we will live? I don't know about that. Moreover, if you don't leave soon, you might be reported to the police for trespassing, you know?
As I spoke coldly, Arnold and Loretta began apologizing to me with faces that looked like they were about to cry. Don't say such harsh things. Don't abandon us. You know how little I make each month, right? I can't even live properly with that. Look, let's call off the divorce and live together again. Yeah, I think that's best. Such rotten people. I found myself slapping Arnold across the face in a fit of anger.
Stop being so spoiled. Who was it that initiated the divorce? Wasn't it you? And isn't your low income because you've been too lazy to look for a job until now? And Loretta, aren't you too convenient, always pampering Arnold and trying to kick me out of the house? Let me tell you, I have no intention of taking care of either of you ever again, and I will never forgive you. Now, choose whether you want to pack your things and leave immediately or if you want me to call the police.
I unleashed all my pent-up feelings, panting from the outburst. I'm sorry. We're truly sorry. Whether they were intimidated by me or not, the two of them hastily went back inside the house. Within 20 minutes, they emerged with their belongings and ran off somewhere without looking back. They were truly troublesome. They had the audacity to live off me without any gratitude and expected to continue doing so. They'd better live their lives in desperation from now on.
I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. It's all fine now. I don't think those two will ever appear in this house again, so please rest assured.
After seeing off the two, I apologized to the prospective buyer and the real estate agent and continued with the viewing. 2 weeks later, I received a call. The sale of the house was officially finalized. Finally, I was able to sever ties with that house filled with nothing but bitter memories. Phew. I can finally relax. Just as I was thinking this, I received a call from Olive.
Hi, long time no see. How have you been? Long time no see. Oh, about that house, it's been successfully sold. Really? That's great.
We had a light conversation for a while, but then I started wondering what Arnold and Loretta were up to. By the way, what are those two doing now?
Oh, they're living together in a cheap and dingy apartment. Arnold is still only working part-time at the grocery store. It seems like he's started to seriously look for a job, but at his age, it's tough to get hired. They're making so little that Mom is also working a part-time job stocking shelves at the supermarket. Considering everything, getting a divorce might have been the right decision for you.
Olive was right. If I had continued living with them, my burden would have only increased.
Haha, lol, that might be true, lol. I'd like to keep in touch with you, Olive. Is it okay if I call you occasionally? Really? That would be great. Please do. Let's go out for lunch sometime with my child.
And with that, the phone call ended. I guess it suits me best to live my life alone, doing what I like. For now, I think I'll steer clear of marriage and relationships. Agriculture, Huh? Sounds poor. Just completely mismatched with our family. My future mother-in-law said to me during a family meeting. I was well aware that my fiancé was the heir to a prestigious company. And I thought I understood what it meant to become his wife, how challenging it could be. But the words of my future mother-in-law were more cutting than I expected. She looked down upon my grandparents, who raised me, as mere country farmers. The arrogant future mother-in-law always stayed true to herself. This did not change even during the family meeting we had with my grandpa. However,
Emily, haven't you realized?
The shocking past revealed by my future father-in-law. Hearing this, the pride of my future mother-in-law was shattered. My life has been a whirlwind in the first half. Now as an adult, I sometimes feel that way. My name is Serena, I'm 27. As a child, after losing my parents one after the other, my grandparents raised me. My dad passed away from illness in my first year. And my mom suddenly disappeared in a car accident when I was in 4th grade. I somewhat understood my dad's death because others told me, but I fully comprehended my mom's. Perhaps due to the difference in my age, I had somehow moved on from my dad's death. But accepting my mom's took much longer. Supported by my grandparents, I believe I've overcome the sadness of being without my parents as I grew up. And they gave me unlimited love. To ensure I didn't struggle, they put me through college, always prioritizing me. I'm currently working as a professional in a company. In this industry-leading and long-established company, there are various people. But I never imagined I'd meet the president's son. Let alone date him.
Serena, would you date me?
Tyler was one of the employees seconded from a subsidiary to the head office. Only a few people in the company knew Tyler was the president's son. I didn't know until Tyler and I started dating and he confided in me.
Dad said to work at the head office, but I wanted to see every part of the company for the future.
Really?
I believe in the necessity of starting from the bottom, even if it's not quite apprenticeship.
Tyler and I participated in various projects together. He always worked more earnestly than anyone, taking on even the smallest tasks. When needed, he could lead and inspire the team. So kind, yet strong and dependable.
Marry me.
On our 2nd anniversary. At the aquarium, our first date spot, Tyler knelt down and proposed to me. It was a classic proposal.
I'd be honored.
With happiness and a bit of shyness, I accepted his proposal. When I told my grandparents, they cried with joy.
Serena is getting a family again. It's like gaining another grandchild.
My grandparents were looking forward to meeting Tyler. Having the family grow seemed like their greatest joy. I lost my parents, but my grandparents had lost their child. Our home lost its liveliness, and all of us tried unconsciously not to be weighed down by sorrow. For our family, my marriage was a very bright topic. I planned to bring Tyler home to meet my grandparents soon, but first, we had a family meeting with Tyler's family. Tyler's parents' home is, in essence, the president's house. That alone made me nervous. Moreover, the house we visited was magnificent from the entrance, and the interior was spacious and beautiful.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Serena. Oh, so you're the one.
Serena, is it?
Emily, my future mother-in-law, was cold from the beginning. Or rather, she had no intention of welcoming me in the first place. Emily is the president's wife. Going back in time, she was also a president's daughter. As Tyler told me, our company was originally founded by Emily's ancestors. And her grandfather and father had been presidents in succession. Tyler's dad, Kent, the current president, took over the company.
I'll do my best too. But in our house, Mom's dominance always prevails. Dad and I are overshadowed at home.
Tyler had hinted at Emily's nature beforehand, but the real thing was more impactful. Emily eloquently spoke about her family history, how she was raised in a distinguished family, maintaining her dignity, and how much effort she put into Tyler's education as a mother.
Tyler attended the same elite school as me and our entire family. Yes. Not just yes, Serena. Do you understand what that means? Hey, Emily. Kent, be quiet.
Shrugging off Kent's attempt to calm her, Emily glared at me.
Do you understand the value of the school that Tyler and I attended, Serena? The kind of privileged people who should attend there? What do you think? Mom!
Tyler also stood up, leaning towards Emily. But Emily, unfazed, turned her criticism towards Tyler.
Tyler, you had such a wonderful environment and connections. How could you choose someone like her as a marriage partner? Hey, that's rude to Serena. Rude? Tyler, I'm disappointed. After everything we've given you. Enough about the house, the family, please. Yes, it's supposed to be a happy occasion. You all be quiet.
What was supposed to be a meeting for the upcoming marriage turned into a family argument. I couldn't intervene, and in the end, Kent somehow managed to calm Emily down. On our way out, Kent desperately apologized to me.
It's okay. I'm sorry for troubling you today. No, it's not your fault. It's our fault.
The disappointment I felt seemed less than the shock Tyler and Kent experienced. Kent approved of the marriage, but Emily only reluctantly accepted it, not welcoming me. Whenever I joined family meals as a fiancé, Emily would sigh and express her discontent. Once, she asked about my family. I told her the truth, not hiding anything. How I lost my parents early and was raised by my grandparents. How we overcame sadness together, the three of us, supporting each other. How my grandparents worked hard in agriculture so I wouldn't have to struggle. I am nothing but grateful to my grandparents. I believe my parents are watching over us, but the love I received from my grandparents who were actually there for me. I still remember it strongly. I conveyed my feelings. The rest was up to how Emily felt about it. I hoped she would understand, even a little, but I was naive. Agriculture, huh? Sounds poor. Just completely mismatched with our family. Mom! How could you say such a thing? That's right. Emily, how far will you go in belittling people? Belittle? I'm just telling the truth. Emily and Kent argued as they used to. Kent apologized to me while scolding Emily. But that wouldn't make Emily back down. The meal ended in a heavy atmosphere. Serena, if you're fed up, you can leave me. Marrying me means dealing with Emily. I can't cut ties with her because of the company. Think about it while you still can. Hearing Emily mock my grandparents and seeing Tyler with such a tired, dark expression left me at a loss for words. But I managed to respond. It's okay. I feel sorry for Grandpa and Grandma, but I'm fine with this. Really? Tyler and I continued to encourage each other as we moved towards our marriage. I knew we had to meet with Grandpa and Grandma soon, but I wasn't looking forward to it. What should I do? As I thought about this on my way home, my face must have shown my distress. What's wrong? Why such a gloomy face? Did something happen with Tyler? Grandma saw right through me, and I had no choice but to open up about everything. I told them about Emily's personality and what she said about me and my grandparents, leaving them in silence. Well, I suppose we should meet them once. Let's have a dinner soon. Grandpa finally spoke up. He instructed me to arrange the time, but he insisted on a high-end restaurant. I was puzzled, but Grandpa just laughed. "Don't worry, I'll pay for the meal." That's all Grandpa said in the end. On the day of the dinner, Grandpa arrived alone. Grandma, shocked by Emily's behavior, refused to meet her. Grandpa and I waited for Tyler and his parents, but Tyler messaged that he and Kent would be late. That meant Grandpa and I would have to deal with Emily first. Just the thought gave me a headache. As I held my head, Emily arrived, greeted us curtly, and sat down. She looked at me and Grandpa with a very displeased expression.
You didn't have to match our family with a high-end restaurant. A lower-class place would have sufficed.
No.
It would be rude to meet for the first time in such a place.
Oh, I made you worry.
But I wonder how long you can keep this up. It's harsh to expect such standards from country farmers. Well, we prioritize living a healthy and honest life over money.
Grandpa faced Emily calmly and firmly, without changing his attitude or behavior. Emily seemed displeased and spat out sarcastic comments and irritation towards Grandpa.
"Sorry for keeping you waiting."
Tyler finally showed up. Kent followed him. Kent started to say something but stopped when he locked eyes with Grandpa.
"Ah. Hey, you two. Why apologize to these people? If we make them wait, that's how it should be treated."
"Hey, Emily." Kent's lips trembled, and his face turned pale with cold sweat.
"What now? Another opinion from you?" "No. Emily, don't you realize?" "Eh?"
As Tyler and I watched in surprise, Kent deeply bowed to Grandpa.
"Chairman, I deeply apologize for my wife's numerous rudeness. Please forgive us." "No need. Chairman is a title from the past. President, today's not about that." "What? What is it?" "Quiet. It's not what. This man was once the chairman of a corporation that saved our company from a crisis."
"Huh? What?"
"I didn't know that. Emily has always been a haughty lady."
Kent remembered calling Grandpa chairman, but Grandpa had once managed several companies. By the time I was a child, he had become a farmer, and according to Grandma, he had wanted to retire early from being a businessman. I had no idea how significant a businessman Grandpa had been. But according to Kent, Grandpa was a wealthy and well-known chairman of a famous company. Back then, the company I worked for was on the brink of bankruptcy under Emily's father's presidency. With no hope for a loan from the bank, the company was saved by Grandpa's company, where he was the chairman and also a business partner. Emily turned pale and stiffened at Kent's words.
"Let's have a pleasant dinner today, as a start to our future relationship."
With Grandpa's smile and words, the tense dinner began. We ate cheerfully, without showing any irritation. Tyler and Kent seemed a bit dazed, but occasionally smiled and chatted with Grandpa. Emily, however, kept her head down and barely moved her hands. The wedding preparations accelerated after the dinner. We set the wedding date and planned the ceremony and reception. Marrying a company heir was more challenging than I thought. Emily was completely left out of the loop. After making a big mistake at the dinner, she seemed to have lost all her usual boldness. She was restless and awkward around me. When asked for her opinion in wedding discussions, she just shook her head. It was unimaginable she would ever be as aggressive as before.
Emily, I have something to discuss."
As I spoke, Emily tried to leave.
"Wait, please. I'd like your advice on the dress design, color, and venue decoration." It would be wrong for me to give my opinion. Emily looked down, feeling worthless. "That's not true. You're familiar with dresses and know about glamorous things."
That's no longer useful.
No, it's important to me. I want to talk about such things with you, Emily. I can't with my mom anymore.
I had given up on doing things with Mom a long time ago. It was the path I had to live, and there was nothing I could do about it, even if I hated it. But deep down, I had always hoped for it. A wish I never shared with Grandpa and Grandma. I knew it would only trouble them. But I could confide in Emily. Even with everything that had happened, she would become Mom when I married Tyler. I needed to face her properly first. I'm sorry. I never tried to understand your situation, Serena. Emily apologized with tears in her eyes. I silently nodded, taking her hand. Emily chose a beautiful red dress for me.
Serena, a softer shade suits you better than a dark red.
Emily, who knew about flowers, helped with the reception venue decoration. Tyler and Kent looked on happily as I, the planner, and Emily gathered together to discuss. I'm ready to live with my new family. Including my own life, I want to build happiness.
You're not getting any of tonight's pot roast. Here, eat this instead. Here you go. But this is leftover soup and salad from 2 days ago. It might have gone bad, but you can handle it, right? Don't be wasteful. Eat up. I don't want to waste good meat on you. I can't eat this. What was that? Leftovers are perfect for you. Stop complaining and eat up. My mother-in-law always directs such nastiness towards me. She's so obnoxious, it just gets under my skin. My name is Mary, a 27-year-old woman juggling both work and home responsibilities. I got married only a year ago, so I don't have any kids yet. Right now, we're living with my husband's family in their house. I never wanted to live with my in-laws, but since my husband is the eldest son, we didn't have much choice. I thought it was ridiculous to live with my in-laws in this day and age, but both my husband and my mother-in-law hold on to old-fashioned values. Moreover, my father-in-law is no longer with us, and my husband expressed his concern for his mother. I have no idea what he's worried about. She's still so full of life. My brother-in-law is single and working overseas, so I guess that's just how it has to be. But I still hate it. Now, even my husband has started being mean to me, following in his mother's footsteps. He never said anything mean before we got married, but his attitude changed drastically. I feel deceived. He's always acting superior, and he always yells at me. It gives me a headache. Hey you! Why is my shirt so wrinkled? Huh? Is it wrinkled? Yeah, I'll be embarrassed at work like this. Can't you even iron properly? Why can't you do something so simple? No, I did iron it. Your properly is not proper at all. Realize that. What a useless wife you are. That's so mean. You don't have to say it like that. Are you talking back to me? Your face is as wrinkled as this shirt. And you're annoying. Seriously, you look older than you are. It's a turnoff. Oh, really? Before we got married, he used to call me adorable. He treated me like a princess. But now, he insults my appearance and laughs about it. I don't understand why he would say such a thing. I'm not wrinkled or anything. It crossed my mind that he's actually balding for his age. I even found myself wishing that he would go completely bald one day. Our marriage is still pretty new, but I'm concerned about the future. Sometimes the word divorce even flashes through my mind. I was exhausted every day, and once I finished the housework after getting home from work, I felt like I was about to collapse. But my mother-in-law never helped with the chores. She seems to spend her whole day blankly watching TV. There were crumbs from snacks on the floor in front of the TV, and a lot of them. I had to clean them up, and I wish she would at least use a plate. Then, after dinner one day, my mother-in-law started to speak. Hey, let's all go to a spa resort when the new year comes. Oh, that sounds great. All right, I'll make the reservation. I'll get on it first thing tomorrow. Thanks, Mom. My husband and mother-in-law seemed very happy. I didn't really want to go with these people, but I was interested in the spa resort itself. I love visiting spa resorts, and this one was famous enough to be featured on TV recently. I thought it could be a great memory if I could ignore these annoying people. So inside, I was actually excited. After this, my mother-in-law said she had something to discuss. I wondered what it was and headed to the living room. You know, we only have a small car, right? So I was hoping we could borrow your family's minivan. After all, we can load lots of luggage in it. All right, I guess. My father has both a minivan and a small car. He usually commutes in the small car and uses the minivan for shopping trips or camping, which is his hobby. When I called my father, he readily agreed to lend it to us. With that, we welcomed the end of the year vacation. I had to clean the house, so it was again incredibly busy. However, thinking that a spa resort was waiting for me after getting through this year-end period helped me push through. As expected, my mother-in-law wouldn't move from the sofa. She laid there all the time, looking like a statue. Then the morning of New Year's Day arrived. I woke up thinking about the long-awaited spa resort, but was surprised when I looked at the alarm clock. I had overslept. What? It's already 8:30? But David isn't here. Why? My husband, who should have been sleeping next to me, wasn't there either. I thought he might be in the bathroom, but he wasn't. Huh? Where is everyone? Did they go somewhere? I peeked into my mother-in-law's bedroom, but she wasn't there either. I began to wonder if they left without me. In a panic, I checked my smartphone. I always charge my phone in the living room before going to bed. There was a text notification on my smartphone. It was from my mother-in-law. We're going to have fun! We never booked a place for you. You can spend a lonely New Year. It's okay if the bride doesn't come. So my mother-in-law never intended to take me with them from the start. And she planned to enjoy it with my husband. I was really sad. At the same time, I was also very angry. It's terrible to deliberately stop my alarm clock to make me oversleep. And I suspect the reason she made me drink a lot of alcohol the night before was to make me pass out. I regretted drinking that much. Although it's a relief that she didn't drug me, I was irritated about her pushing drinks on me. Well, there's nothing I can do, even if I get angry. So I decided to enjoy myself alone, at home. I really wanted to go home to my parents, but they're also away on a trip by plane, so it's pointless to go back. So I ordered a pizza for delivery that day, and spent a lonely day. Then my mother-in-law and husband returned from their trip. They had broad smiles on their faces. It was so fun! It was the best! I want to stay there again. Of course, without you, Mary. Here, this is a souvenir. What is this? It's a stone I found lying around. It suits you perfectly. Oh, is that so? I couldn't help but think that my mother-in-law was extremely spiteful. Frustrated, I went to return the minivan to my parents' house. I thought they would be home by now. When I arrived at my parents' house, my father came to greet me. Did you enjoy the spa resort? That famous spa should have been quite satisfying. I didn't go because I'm the bride. What? I was told by my mother-in-law that it's fine if the bride doesn't come. I was left behind. When I woke up in the morning, no one was there. What? After that, my father started to do something. Then he had me sit in the passenger seat of the minivan and started driving. The car was headed back to my in-laws' house. When I glanced at my father's face as he drove, he seemed to be angry. Well, any father would get angry if their daughter was treated that way. But I was taken aback because I had never seen such a look on my usually calm father's face. Then my father stormed into my in-laws' house with something in his hand. My mother-in-law came out. Oh, hello, and Happy New Year! Sorry for borrowing your minivan. Happy New Year. Speaking of which, you left our daughter behind, didn't you? No. Mary said she had a fever and couldn't go, so we had to leave her behind reluctantly. I even offered to take care of her. My mother-in-law was lying through her teeth with a smirk on her face. She definitely never said anything like that, and I wasn't even sick with a cold. I wondered how she could tell such an obvious lie. I thought something must be wrong with her brain. Oh, really? But our daughter said she was left behind. She told us she received a message on text saying, "It's fine if the bride doesn't come." Did I say that? I don't remember. You did! Look at this text! I showed her the text messages. However, she still insisted she was innocent. I was surprised at how thick-skinned she was to still deny it, even cornered this far. In a sense, it was admirable. You're still saying that, huh? You're truly a sad person. Oh, by the way, can I charge you for the cleaning of the car interior? What? Why? Because you dirtied it. With a married man, nonetheless. What a filthy and disgusting scene. What are you talking about? This right here. It was captured by this dual camera. What my father had in his hand was a dash cam. This one has dual cameras, so it can record not only the outside, but also the inside of the car. The advantage of being able to record the inside of the car is that it can provide evidence that you were driving safely. My mother-in-law doesn't know much about car supplies or cars in general, so there's a chance she didn't realize this was a dual camera. But what was she doing with a married man in the first place? I regretted watching the footage that my father played back. After all, there were images of my mother-in-law in an indecent posture and an unknown man. Even though my father-in-law is no longer in this world, it's insane to do such a thing with a married man. And what on earth was she doing in our family car? This was on the exact day you borrowed the car. Ugh, how disgusting. Wait! This doesn't mean we were doing anything dirty. It's not something perverted. My mother-in-law was in a panic, fumbling and stammering on the spot. Tears welled up in her eyes. She was on the brink of crying. I found myself curious and somewhat amused about when she would finally break down. Maybe I'm being cruel, but after all the time she tormented me, she deserves this much. I couldn't be sympathetic or kind to someone like her. Then she began making pathetic excuses. Her reasoning was all over the place. It was clear she was flustered. Yet, she was desperate to defend herself. Suddenly, my father pulled another item from his pocket. It was a photograph. The picture showed my mother-in-law and the man from the video engaged, in a sordid act in broad daylight. It was unthinkable. The background of the picture suggested it took place somewhere secluded, but the audacity to do this in the daytime was still shocking. You wouldn't have seen these if you hadn't been mean to my dear Mary. Why do you have that picture? Because I'm a detective, remember? Oh. Do you recall now? Look, I've been telling you this all along, haven't I? My father is a detective, which explains why he had such a photograph. Coincidentally, the wife of the married man in the picture had hired him for an infidelity investigation. It turns out the wife of this man hired me to investigate her husband's affair. I was surprised to discover you were the other woman. I was going to inform her next week, but I didn't expect to show you this so soon. Huh. No, I'm innocent. I was just forced into an unpleasant situation. I am not at fault. Please, don't tell his wife. It was against your will, was it? You seem to be enjoying yourself. We also have video footage of you whispering sweet words to the man. Do you want to see it? I'm sorry. My mother-in-law collapsed to her knees and burst into tears. I watched her in a pitiful state, with a cold glare. Sensing the unusual situation, my husband arrived. I had run out of patience with him too, and I proposed a divorce. I've had enough. I want to end this. Let's get divorced. What? I'll go crazy if I stay in this horrible family any longer, so I'm leaving. Hold on. What will happen to our living expenses if you leave? Huh? I was fired a while ago. My husband dropped a bombshell. Apparently, he had been fired at the end of the year. I was taken aback as he had not told me this. Despite knowing his job was terminated, he had still decided to go on a spa resort trip. He was a complete fool. I felt I had no choice but to divorce him. I took off my wedding ring and left it there. My husband desperately tried to stop me. Wait, can't you forgive me for not taking you on the spa resort trip? It's not just about the trip. I don't want to be with you or your mother anymore. If you want to live with your mother that much, then go ahead, you mama's boy. Please wait. Don't go! I got a lawyer and proceeded with the divorce. My ex-husband seems to be having trouble managing his living expenses now that I'm gone. I thought he should find a new job quickly, but having been fired from his last job for theft, he'll probably struggle to find a new one. His previous company had fired him because he had been caught stealing. Apparently, they decided they couldn't trust him and didn't need someone like that. Unsurprisingly, the wife of my mother-in-law's lover demanded compensation for the affair. She ended up spending all the money left by my father-in-law to settle the payment. I haven't seen my ex-husband or ex-mother-in-law since, but I imagine they're probably living a hard life. It doesn't matter to me anymore. Currently, I'm living alone and enjoying my work. I made the right decision not to have a child with my ex-husband. Now, I am enjoying a peaceful life and would be happy if I found a new love. If such an opportunity arises, I plan to make sure to choose wisely.
It's the honest truth. Even your father-in-law must have heard about your blunders, right? It's downright unbearable. Sharing a meal with a poor woman who grew up in a single-mother household like you? It's preposterous. You come from a different world than us. Please, just leave and wait outside. Understood. I'll leave. I politely said goodbye to the Johnson family and tried to leave. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm a 24-year-old working at Johnson Enterprises. As the secretary to the CEO, I've been employed here for about 2 years. I was actually invited to join the company by the CEO, Ronald Johnson, while I was still in college. We were in the same business class and ended up becoming good friends because our seats were side by side. Ronald is 30 years old, and we met when he was 24. He had already graduated from a 4-year college, but he was attending college again to deepen his knowledge as a business owner, it seems. He is quite the scholar. His father is the chairman of the Johnson Group. During his university years, Ronald took over his father's will and served as the president of Johnson Group Trading. He became an elite at a young age by becoming a president. My family, on the other hand, was extremely poor. My father was a gambling addict and a hopeless casino fanatic. The debts he incurred led to my parents' divorce when I was in elementary school. My mother raised me single-handedly. I want to somehow help my mother who has been struggling. With that feeling, I kept working hard at my studies. And then, Ronald, who learned about my situation, invited me to join his company, Johnson Trading. 2 years have passed since I joined the company and started working as Ronald's secretary. I have acquired secretarial and business document skills certification and am working hard for Ronald. By the way, Ronald Johnson, the president, is also my husband. Originally, I was interested in him during my university years and started dating after joining Johnson Trading. After a year of dating, I got married to Ronald. Ronald is a kind husband who, despite being a president, never acts arrogant and always takes care of me. I feel extreme happiness being able to be with him both at work and at home. I truly believe it was great that I met Ronald. Then came a certain day. A transfer notice was announced at Johnson Trading, and I couldn't hide my surprise at the name. The appointment of a vice president, and that name was Julia Johnson. I inadvertently frowned at the sight of the new vice president's name. I couldn't believe that the person I was not comfortable with was becoming vice president. This Julia Johnson is the wife of Ronald's brother, Billy Johnson. The reason she was promoted to vice president is because she has a proven track record of reviving companies in the Johnson Group. The performance of Johnson Trading has been declining year by year. Originally dealing mainly in food and clothing, the recent epidemic has resulted in a decline in sales. Ronald was in a frenzy, trying to recover the performance, but to no avail. Hence, the competent Julia Johnson was appointed as vice president. In other words, she is my sister-in-law. Why am I uncomfortable with this person? The reason goes back 1 year. I first met Julia at the wedding reception when Ronald and I got married. She was a very beautiful and cute woman, but when I greeted her, she just said, I got a really bad impression. Did I do something? When I tried to start a conversation with Julia, where are you from? Where am I from? I'm from Cincinnati. The moment she clicked her tongue. Do you not understand what I mean? I'm asking about your social status, not where you're from. Surely, you're not just a commoner, are you? I couldn't make sense of my conversation with her, and all I could say was, I am an ordinary citizen. Then she just disappeared without a word. I haven't seen Julia since then. The much anticipated day of the internal personnel change, X Day, arrived. Julia was appointed as vice president, and Ronald and I went to the station to pick her up. I was nervous about seeing her again after a long time. I didn't know what to say, so all I could say was, Julia, nice to meet you. She just said, oh, it's been a while. Got into the limousine arranged by Ronald and headed straight to Johnson Trading. When Ronald and I entered the president's office, I heard words from him that made me doubt my ears. He wanted me to be Julia's secretary. When I asked why me, he said it was because Julia had requested it. Apparently, Ronald couldn't refuse because she was his brother's wife. I reluctantly accepted when he pleaded with me. The job is the same as the president's secretary, managing the schedule, assisting with tasks, and answering the vice president's phone calls. However, since the person was my brother-in-law's wife and an unknown entity, I found it hard to do. Still, I had to do it. In the afternoon, I entered the vice president's office where Julia was. I greeted her and tried to start a conversation in the hope of getting along with her a little bit. I'm so glad that you're the vice president, Julia. I look forward to working with you. I greeted with a smile, but she said, I don't care about that. Just tell me tomorrow's schedule. I was initially angry, but I held it in, apologized with, I'm sorry, and explained it to her with my notebook. What's with this arrogant attitude? But she is a member of the Johnson family. I didn't want to cause a big trouble and didn't want to cause trouble to Ronald, so I decided to do my job while holding back. That day, Ronald came home to the apartment when I got home. When I went to greet him at the entrance, he said, "What's wrong? You look pale." I just responded with, "I'm fine." I couldn't tell him after all. One day, I made a grave mistake. I accidentally swapped Ronald and Julia's schedules and only realized this when I received a phone call from Julia. She stated that she had not scheduled the meeting that I had told her about. Looking at the schedule, I saw that I had relayed the details of the meeting meant for Ronald to Julia instead. I realized my mistake, but it was too late by then. I was rebuked by Julia saying, "I apologized to the client, but they didn't forgive me, and we lost a hard-won deal worth $200,000 because of you." She also lamented about the fact that she had to put up with unwanted advances from the lecherous president of the company we were dealing with to secure the deal, all of which ended up being for naught due to my error. Upon hearing that Julia returned to the office, I immediately went to the president's office. I walked in and first thing, I apologized deeply. But Julia shouted back, "Sorry isn't enough," her face as red as a demon's. I was at a loss for words when Ronald stepped in. "This time it's true that Mary is at fault, but there's nothing we can do about it now. Be careful next time." Ronald tried to mediate the situation, but Julia snidely remarked, "She'll just make the same mistake again. This is why uneducated commoners are useless." Upon hearing this comment, I recognized my fault, but wondered what she meant by not having a decent education. It felt like my personality and life were being denied, which fueled my irritation. But the mistake was mine. Unable to retort, I stayed silent. Then Ronald intervened. "That might be an overstatement." However, Julia turned away with a dismissive, After getting permission from Ronald to leave, I exited the president's office. I went to the company cafe to reflect, pondering why I made the mistake. Just then, Julia walked in. I rushed to her, saying, "Julia, I'm sincerely sorry for what happened." I apologized without caring who was around. "I'm forgiving you this time because the president asked me to. But don't think there will be a next time. I can fire a commoner like you anytime." This was the last straw. I understand and accept my mistake. But what does being a commoner have to do with anything? Excuse me, is being a commoner relevant here? What? Who are you to argue? If you had a proper education, you wouldn't have made such a mistake. Well, I think my mistake and my home environment are unrelated. Is there something against commoners? I inadvertently confronted Julia. She sighed as if exasperated and said, "Never mind." Then she walked away. A week later, Ronald, Julia, and I were set to attend the head office's executive meeting. We had a pre-meeting lunch as the meeting was scheduled in the afternoon. After thoroughly checking the topics and materials, I felt well prepared this time. As our meeting neared conclusion and Ronald left for the restroom, I also went to the restroom at that time. I felt nervous about attending the meeting with Julia, fearing more criticisms. I felt a salty taste as I sipped the water in my glass, but dismissed it as my imagination and finished the drink to quench my thirst. We joined the executive meeting at 3 p.m. The meeting progressed smoothly, but suddenly I felt an urge to use the restroom. The feeling was so strong that I could hear my stomach rumbling. There was no way I could hold it in. Yet, I didn't have the courage to interrupt this solemn meeting by declaring, "Excuse me, restroom," and rushing out. Regardless of my reluctance, the urge to go kept tormenting me. "Ronald, everyone, I'm sorry." Before facing the deluge, the disaster, the guerrilla rainstorm, I'm sorry. I rushed out of the meeting room and into the restroom, where I stayed for nearly 30 minutes. Everything was over, and I opened the door and stepped outside. I was feeling incredibly unwell from dehydration and exhaustion. It seemed that the meeting was over too, and Ronald and Julia were sitting in the company cafe. Ronald was looking at me with concern, but Julia had a smirk on her face. That's when a suspicion crossed my mind. The water I had drunk earlier had a strong, salty taste. When I returned from the toilet and sat down, clutching my stomach, Ronald asked me if I was okay. But Julia just said, "Did you eat something weird and get food poisoning?" in a sarcastic tone. Could it be that she mixed a laxative in while I was gone? But why? Would she do something like that? Out of anger for the lost deal? I don't know, but I did have diarrhea after drinking that water. I found myself plunged in doubt and suspicion. Ronald told me, "Go home and rest today." So I decided to go home. The diarrhea was better, but my stomach hurt. I laid my head on the cafe table until I calmed down. After a while, the pain subsided and I decided to head home. But before that, I had to inform the vice president of tomorrow's schedule. I headed to the vice president's office and knocked on the door. When I did, I heard Julia's voice saying, "Come in." When I entered the room, she said, "Oh, it's you." Of course, she didn't bother asking about my health. "What do you want? Make it quick, I'm busy." "Julia, you put something in the water, didn't you?" At my question, Julia smirked and said, "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. At lunchtime, when Ronald and I left our seats, didn't you mix something in my glass?" "Oh my, what a sudden accusation! It's completely unreasonable to blame others. Get out of here, you fool!" Furthermore, I saw a box of laxatives on her desk. When Julia noticed my gaze, she said, "Well, I might as well tell you the truth. Yes, I mixed a drug into your glass." "Why would you do such a thing? What did I ever do to you?" Why have you been like this since we met? It's simple. Because you're a commoner, that's all. You're unnecessary to the Johnson family. Her flippant reason for considering me a commoner left me not just angry, but dumbfounded. And tears welled up in my eyes. Unfortunately, I'll have to fire you. No matter how much you tell the president about me, you have no evidence, so it's impossible. Plus, if you consult anyone, you'll be making an enemy of the Johnson family. A rift will form between my husband Billy and Ronald, and the brotherly relationship will become the worst because of you. If you're okay with that, feel free to consult. She was right. If I told Ronald, the Johnson family would be in turmoil. I had no choice but to endure in silence. Tears of frustration wouldn't stop, and I navigated through the blurry vision to head home. Ronald worried about my sobbing figure. I wanted to talk, but if I did, things would get serious. Ronald asked, "What happened? Is it about Julia?" He hit the nail on the head. After much hesitation, I said, "Actually, Julia..." I ended up talking about everything, the past events and the incidents at today's meeting. Once I started speaking, I couldn't stop, and I ended up speaking my mind. And then I couldn't stay in the Johnson family anymore. But it was because of me that a major deal fell through. I was just a drag. "Ronald, I'm sorry. Let's get divorced. If I'm gone, you can stay good with Billy, with Julia. I'm an unnecessary person. Don't despair. I'm no good without Mary. I love Mary. I want you by my side every moment. That's why I made you my secretary. So please, don't leave me. Don't talk about such sad things like breaking up." One day, at the end of the year, Ronald asked me to come to a dinner party where the entire Johnson family would gather. Of course, Julia would be there. I decided to go to the dinner party. After all, it was an important event. And then I made up my mind and left the house. The staff greeted me and showed me the way. My in-laws, Billy, and Julia were already at the table. I greeted everyone. Of course, Julia acted sullenly with a It was an expected attitude. When Ronald and I sat down, Julia first said, "I feel sick." "I really feel sick. Having dinner with this poor trash? It pollutes the atmosphere. It will spoil caviar we are going to have." At this statement, my father-in-law said, "What are you talking about?" in anger. "It's the truth. You must have heard about her gaffe too, right? It's so annoying. It's not a joke to have dinner with a commoner from a single mother household. You're from a different world. Just go out. It's better if you wait outside." Understood, then. I said bye to everyone in the Johnson family and was about to leave. I heard my father-in-law suddenly yell, "Then you should go home." "What? What do you mean, father-in-law?" "No ifs or buts. You're the unnecessary one in the Johnson family." "What are you talking about, father-in-law?" I am the vice president of Johnson Corporation and Billy's wife. She seemed to want to argue, but my father-in-law shook his head and said, "It seems Billy wants to divorce you." At that word, Julia glared at Billy. "Billy, is that true?" "Yes. I'm tired of your high-handed attitude that looks down on people, and you don't do any housework. You're good at your job and there are parts I respect, but otherwise, you're done as a human being. You're the one who's in the way." What? Furthermore, it seems like my father-in-law had heard from Ronald about what Julia had done to me so far. The fact that Billy didn't like her, and about me. My father-in-law seemed to have planned to cut ties with Julia at this opportunity. That's what the dinner was for. "Don't say such ridiculous things. After all, father-in-law, do you have any proof? The proof that I made Mary sick?" At this time, I thought it was time for revenge. Everyone in the Johnson family is on my side. There's nothing to fear. I remembered on the spur of the moment and pulled out the pen I always stick in my chest. Then, Julia made a puzzled face and then laughed out loud. "What are you thinking, showing such a thing?" Her complacency will end now. Without any hesitation, I pressed the switch on the pen. "Don't play dumb. Didn't you mix something into my glass when Ronald and I left our seats during lunch?" When my voice played, Julia's face turned pale. "Yes, this pen is not just a pen. It's a pen-type recorder. It's always recording to not forget the content of conversations at negotiations and meetings. Thinking that there might be something, I kept Julia's voice as evidence. And now was the perfect time to play it." Julia covered her face with both hands and was trembling. "It's not over yet, Julia. You didn't really marry Billy out of love. You married him to expand the Lee Group's power, didn't you?" What are you talking about?" Then Ronald took out his smartphone and started playing a certain voice recording. "That poor woman is unnecessary to the Lee Group. Instead, I will incorporate the Johnson Group into the Lee Group eventually." Suddenly, Julia covered her face and screamed, "Stop! I feel so..." Was this her soliloquy? "In doing so, my status will rise even higher. How secure!" After that, a long conversation that seemed like Julia's monologue continued. "Once I become the next president of Johnson Corporation, I can frequent high-end male strip clubs even more than now." And the recording also contained her calling out names of her favorite strippers, saying, "I love you," and "I adore you." Hearing this, Billy showed his anger. "You're obsessed with strippers." Why did she feel embarrassed after the voice recording was played? The Lee Group that Julia mentioned is a rival of the Johnson Group. She originally was the daughter of the Lee Group. However, it was said that she had a love marriage with Billy. But that seemed to be different. She might have been forced into a political marriage as a spy for the Lee Group. "You will divorce Billy and be dismissed as the vice president. Furthermore, we will completely withdraw from the Lee Group. We have been getting along through mutual encouragement, but this is a total break." Julia's face turned pale. Furthermore, the mother-in-law, who had been listening to the whole thing, opened her mouth. "Julia, You called Mary a poor person and a commoner, but what I can't forgive the most is that you denied that she was raised in a single-parent family. I, too, was poor and raised in a single-parent family when I was young. You don't know the human heart. You're the one who's not needed. It was the first time I had seen the mother-in-law so angry. I was surprised, as she always gave me a gentle and smiling impression. Everyone's gaze gathered on Julia. She pounded the table with both hands and stood up vigorously. Remember this! The Lee Group will never forgive you! She spat out this parting shot and left the restaurant. Honestly, my heart felt very relieved. Everyone protected me. I no longer needed to leave the Johnson family. As I felt relieved, tears began to flow. Seeing this, Ronald and my parents-in-law and Billy all comforted me. 2 weeks after the dinner party, a call came from the chairman of the Lee Group. I remembered Julia's words. The Lee Group will never forgive you. However, the contents of the call were unexpected. I sincerely apologize for the tremendous inconvenience my daughter, Julia, has caused you. The chairman himself had made an apology call. Apparently, he had heard the detailed story from the chairman of the Johnson Group, my father-in-law, and when he asked Julia, she readily admitted to it. The Lee Group does not think about crushing the Johnson Group at all. This trouble is my responsibility as a parent. I am truly sorry. It turned out that everything had started from Julia's delusion. Moreover, the reason why Julia mixed that thing from me seemed to be a grudge against my previous rebuttal. Does being a commoner matter? It seemed that she couldn't stand being told various things by me. A commoner, even though she was in the upper class. She is indeed a woman with high pride. Some time passed and I received another invitation to a high-end restaurant for my in-laws. I went to the restaurant with Ronald. The place was the same restaurant as before. There, my in-laws were already present, and the four of us gathered around the table. My father-in-law tried to order. Then, 2 staff members came over, and I was surprised to see one of them. The staff member was none other than Julia. Why are you guys here? Why are you working here? I have no choice. My father told me to gain experience in customer service and learn about society. Really, even though I, a lady, have to do this. She turned red in the face with anger, and the stern-looking male staff behind her said, "Hey, don't keep the customers waiting. Take their orders." Yes, I'm sorry. She was almost in tears as she took the order. Honestly, it was very funny. The dish was delivered, and while we were enjoying its taste, we heard the male staff yelling again. When I looked in the direction of the voice, Julia was crying and apologized to the male staff. It seemed that she was being scolded for making mistakes in orders and behaving rudely to customers. We ate the delicious food while laughing at the sight of her, who had changed so much.
What can a loser like you do? My brother snorted as he said those words. Living with my brother and his wife, Our mother was being taken advantage of. She arrived at our house in a worn-out state, crying, "I don't want to return there." The sight of her played in my mind as I clenched my teeth. "Hey, are you sure you can support that old hag? Are you going to take her in? Huh?" He was treating our beloved mother so badly and was ridiculing me as well. A wave of anger surged within me and I gripped the phone tighter. Still, I responded calmly. "If you're okay with it, I'll take her in. My name is Rena. I'm 30 years old this year, married for 4 years. I have a happy life with my kind husband and our 2-year-old daughter. We're blessed in our work and lead a joyful life." I glanced at the date on the calendar and pulled out my smartphone. Today is my mother's birthday. "Happy 58th birthday, Mom. Are you well? Is there anything bothering you?" I texted her and soon got a reply. "Thank you for your text. I'm doing fine. Don't worry. How are you and your family? I'm always praying for your happiness." Even after reading her response, I couldn't help but worry. Currently, my mother is living with my brother and his wife at our childhood home. Our family was a household of 4: my father, my mother, older brother, and me. My father was a strict disciplinarian, with strong patriarchal beliefs and a controlling type. Because of him, my mother and I had been oppressed all along. My maternal grandfather worked at a company owned by my father's father, my paternal grandfather, and my mother was chosen to be the wife of the future company president. Due to the absolute power disparity between the 2 grandfathers, she could not refuse and was sent off to marry him almost like a hostage. The company also fell due to the burst of the economic bubble before my father could take over. However, it seems like they still had money left, and I never saw my father work. He would start drinking in the daytime, and his abusive words were directed at my mother and me. Living in fear of his quick temper, my mother had no choice but to obey. Even so, my father held steadfast to his outdated belief that women were inferior and men were unquestionably superior. He doted on my brother with this perspective, treating him as if he was something special. My brother got anything he wanted growing up, while I could never even express my desires. "A woman shouldn't be greedy," our father would scold. It's due to this upbringing that my brother developed a sense of entitlement, always believing he was special, while treating me as less than him, constantly ridiculing me. I remember how painful it was to grow up in such an environment. Every day I dreamed of leaving home as soon as possible. Despite my excellent grades, my brother, who performed poorly in school, was allowed to go to expensive private high school and college, while I was not even permitted by our father to attend high school. "Women don't need education. It's a waste. You should either get married soon or start working at a minimum wage job," he would say dismissively. I remember the time when my brother told me, "You're a dumb girl who's a failure. It's a waste for you to go to high school." And I cried in frustration at the utter unfairness of it all. In the end, my mother secretly arranged for me to attend a boarding high school. Despite the tough home environment, my mother was always on my side. "Rena, it's okay. You can escape from here. You will surely find happiness." I remember my mother saying these words before I went off to high school. I graduated from university using scholarships and money I earned myself. Since high school, I've barely returned home. I didn't attend my brother's wedding, and I didn't tell them when I got married. But I kept in touch with my mother, and occasionally met up with her. It's not an overstatement to say that I owe who I am today to my mother, a presence of utmost importance in my life. She was a gentle soul who may have been weak-minded, but loved me with all her heart. I always wished happiness for her. I remember when our father died from years of poor lifestyle habits. I didn't attend the funeral, but I received shocking news from my mother. On his deathbed, my father told my brother and his wife to move back home and live with our mother. Since then, my brother and his wife have been living with my mother. I wanted to protest, but my mother said it was okay, so I didn't say anything more. Instead, I kept in touch with her like this. Still, it was my brother. Would he take care of my mother properly? Was my mother truly okay? I always had a feeling of unease. After a while, my fears proved right. One night, the intercom of our apartment rang unexpectedly. When I answered, my mother stood there, dressed ragged. Despite it being late fall, she wore a thin, old, short-sleeved shirt and a skirt so worn out I couldn't tell when she had gotten it. Her hair was disheveled, her cheeks hollow, her eyes sunken, and she was trembling uncontrollably. I was taken aback by her appearance and raised my voice. "Mom? What on earth happened to you?" "Rena, I'm sorry to just show up like this," she uttered in a voice so weak it could disappear, as tears streamed down her face. I welcomed her in, and my husband quickly prepared a warm drink and a blanket. Once she had settled down, Mom began to speak in a halting voice. Soon, after she had started living with my brother and his wife Nicole, it seems they had been treating her like a maid. Not only had they forced her to do all the housework, but if she didn't do it to their satisfaction, my brother would scorn her, calling her useless and a nuisance, threatening to throw her out. Nicole was calling my mom an old hag. She even sold my mom's few precious jewelry pieces and clothes. And then they'd gone about spreading false rumors that my mom was a troublesome mother-in-law. Mom had lost weight rapidly, and when she fell ill and bedridden, she was roused and forced to do household chores again. Seeing my mom talk through her tears, my heart ached unbearably. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were suffering so much?" "Rena, I've put you through hardship since you were a child. I didn't want to burden you any further. I thought if I could just bear it," my mom said, her voice trembling. Then an email came in. "Oh, it's from Nicole." "Where are you? You didn't do the laundry and there's no food. Do you want your things to be sold again?" The email made her hands shake. "I'm sorry, Rena. I don't want to go back to that house." Upon hearing my mother's words, I pulled out my smartphone without saying a word. I dialed the number my mother gave me. After the dial tone, my brother picked up. "Who's this?" In response to his gruff voice, I answered. "This is Rena. Mom's here with me." "Oh, it's you. That old hag, leaving without doing the chores. So she was with you. Tell her to come back immediately." "It seems you've been treating Mom quite badly. I've heard everything." My voice was trembling with anger, but my brother just snorted and replied. "Ha! What about it? What can a dimwit like you do?" "What? You've been overworking Mom to the point of sickness, and you think that's okay? I won't let her live with you any longer." "Hey, do you think you can afford to support that old hag? She's been a housewife all her life, can't do anything, and has no money. Are you going to take her in?" "What? No more old hag! She was so handy as a housekeeper!" A voice that sounded like his wife came from afar. "They've been treating my dear mother so poorly, and even making fun of me. I can't stand it." I felt a surge of rage towards my brother and his wife, and my grip on the phone tightened. Still, I said calmly, "If you say so, brother, then I will take Mom in." "Huh? Well, if you're going to take her, that's fine. It'll clear out some space in the house, and I'll be relieved." "Understood. Mom will be living with me, so don't contact us anymore." I hung up the phone. "Rena, I'll take good care of your mother too," my husband said, taking my hand. Our daughter cheerfully climbed onto my mother's lap, calling her grandma, and my mother hugged her and cried. Half a year later, our doorbell was rung repeatedly. When I looked out, my angry brother was there. Next to him was a grumpy woman with a flamboyant outfit, probably his wife, Nicole. "What do you want? How did you find out where we live?" "We looked it up. Just open up. There's something we want to ask you." My husband and mother were by my side. I had my husband take our daughter into another room while my mother and I handled it. The first thing my brother said when he walked in was, "What's this about our house being sold?" "Oh, you got the message? Yes, my company bought your house." I responded calmly. "Your company? What are you talking about?" "Exactly what I said. I'm the head of a well-known real estate company around here, so it's my company. By the way, doesn't the company you work for subcontract to us?" When my brother heard the name of my real estate company, his face changed color. That's ridiculous! You, a dropout and a loser, working at that real estate company, and you're the head? That's impossible. If you're suspicious, why don't you make a phone call or something to verify? But please, don't cause any inconvenience to the company. I showed him my business card. As soon as he saw the card, my brother fell silent. His face flushed red. Indeed, after graduating from university, I had worked hard and been hired by a major real estate company. Later, I was headhunted as an executive for a newly established company, Company A. For your information, I met my husband at work, and we got married. He's what you would call a landowner, so I think we're considerably wealthier than you. There's no reason for you to call me a dropout or a loser. I could easily support Mom, you know. My brother, wide-eyed and gritting his teeth, didn't respond. His wife's face expressed shock. Damn it! Okay. What about our family home? What do you mean you sold it? My brother nearly foamed at the mouth as he yelled. My mother, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke up. You may not have known, but after your father passed away, the house was transferred to my name. So I sold the house and land to Rena's company, using my rights. So you should leave as soon as possible. What? What are you talking about, old woman? Wait, what's going on? You said that as the oldest son, the house was yours, didn't you? My brother and his wife were in a panic, their complexions changing rapidly. What's wrong with me selling something that's in my name? Sorry to break it to you, but I've broken free from your influence. I won't live as you dictate anymore, my mother said resolutely. In response, my brother yelled at her. What the hell are you talking about, you worthless old hag? His wife joined in. That's right! You've never worked a day in your life, just being supported by others. What are you talking about? Mom works hard. She's the manager of an apartment building that my husband and I own. She's very friendly, always keeps the place clean, and is loved by the residents. And she gets paid for it too. I replied firmly. Upon hearing this, my brother, who had been standing until then, fell silent and slumped into a chair. Next to him, Nicole whispered something in his ear. Knowing my prideful brother, he must have been crushed by the unexpected defeat at the hands of his sister and the rejection from his mother. If there's nothing else, you can leave now. I don't want to be involved with you. At my words, my brother lifted his head. His face, previously filled with rage, now showed a fawning, grinning expression. All right. But listen, you're rich now, right? Then give me some money. I recently lost my job, you see. I'm having money troubles. What? I was shocked at his audacity. Hey, Mom could give money to me too. You've got money from selling the house, right? Just think of it as helping out your adorable son, and give me some cash. Then I'll leave. Just as I was about to respond, my mother raised her voice. Enough already! Have some shame! I was taken aback to see my refined, gentle mother raising her voice like that for the first time. My brother and his wife looked stunned as well. I apologize for raising you to prey on your sister like a shameless creature, but there are things you should and shouldn't do. Don't disturb us anymore, and go home. Hearing this, my brother started to tremble again. Shut up and listen, old hag. You're telling me what's what. Be prepared. I'll squeeze every dime of your inheritance from you. Nicole added, Yes, give us the money already. To these two, my mother coldly retorted, That's if there's anything left. From now on, I plan to spend all the money from the sale of the house for myself and Rena and her family. I have no intention of leaving a single penny for you two. What the hell, you old crone? I'm cutting ties with both of you. From now on, please stay away from me and Rena. Leave that house immediately. Seeing my mother like this, I was so proud of her, a desire to applaud, and I was genuinely happy. My mother, who had been oppressed and obedient to everything, was finally freed from the curse of that house. Do you understand now? Please go home, I said, rubbing my mother's trembling back. Damn! No, we won't leave. We won't leave here until we get the money, at least. Yes, we'll squat in that house. My brother and his wife were still glaring at us. Then a low, calm voice echoed in the room. "What do you mean, you won't leave?" Standing there was my husband. My husband, with his gentle voice, spoke to my mother. "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. Could you please watch our daughter? You did great. Don't worry about the rest. Everything will be fine." Hearing my husband's words, my mother said, "Thank you," and got up from her chair. Looking at my husband, my brother and his wife turned pale and their eyes widened in surprise. "What? Who are you? Nice to meet you. I am Rena's husband. By the way, what were you saying to my wife and mother-in-law earlier?" My husband replied with a straight face. My brother and his wife suddenly turned docile. That's to be expected. My husband stands at a tall 6'3", has a solid build and a strong, imposing face. In fact, he even holds a black belt in judo. Despite his peaceful nature, his kindness towards me, his intellect, and his doting love for our daughter, it's no surprise that people meeting him for the first time might think he looks intimidating. Especially to someone like my brother, who can only show off and look down on women. My husband is the most difficult type to handle. I just remembered I have something to do, so I should be going." Yes, let's go." My brother and his wife quickly changed their attitude and left. Their retreat was so comical, I had to restrain myself from laughing. In the quiet house, my husband touched my shoulder and told me, "You did well. You must be tired." My mother appeared holding my daughter, her face bright, and we embraced each other without saying a word. Fast forward to 1 year. My husband, my mother, and I continue to share a harmonious relationship. My mother continues her job as a building superintendent, and compared to that night when she showed up looking worn out, she is now lively and healthy. She adores and takes care of my daughter, which has been a great help to me. Of course, my daughter adores her grandmother too, and often sticks to her. Watching them brings feelings of happiness to both my husband and me. As for my brother, he, believe it or not, divorced shortly after that incident. He lost his house and his money, and after showing my husband his pathetic state, Nicole quickly left him. Nicole is currently striving for remarriage through dating, but due to her nasty nature and ulterior motives for money, it seems she can't find anyone. My brother was kicked out of his family home, jobless, and living alone in a rundown apartment while struggling with part-time jobs. Of course, I have no intentions of helping him, as he brought this upon himself. My mother and I plan to live without getting involved with him any further. By the way, we are planning to build a large, 2-family home soon. We could continue living in the condo my husband owns, but as my mother pointed out, it would become cramped as our daughter grows. "Let me use all the money from selling the house," she said, to which we gratefully accepted, despite chuckling at her enthusiasm. We are looking forward to living happily together in our new home. "I'm done with you two. Just die here." My husband left those words hanging in the air as he abandoned me and our 4-year-old daughter in a snowy mountain. Within the dense wilderness, I had no idea where we were. The icy winds bit into our bodies, making us shiver uncontrollably. "We just have to follow Grandma," my daughter suddenly exclaimed. I looked in the direction she pointed, but there was no one there. Still, I decided to follow her lead, because my beloved daughter has some strange power. My name is Nancy, a 32-year-old remote worker. I met my husband Mark, of the same age, at a group blind date. Mark was a charismatic entrepreneur since college and a smooth talker. I fell in love with him and decided to get married. Mark's family was well respected in our local area, so our friends admired and envied our relationship. Shortly after our wedding, at the request of my in-laws, we moved in with them. They were kind people, but my mother-in-law required constant care due to her frail health. "Nancy, I heard you are a nurse. My wife is so frail, and I've been so worried. We are grateful that you came into our lives. If I can be of any help, I am more than happy to do so, I replied. I quit my job as a nurse to take care for my mother-in-law and started working from home, as I always wanted. I've always enjoyed web designing and creating websites, so I turned my hobby into my profession. It was a job I could do at my own pace, without any strict deadlines. However, one thing that bothered me was that even after 3 years of marriage, we hadn't been blessed with a child. Mark's business was thriving and expanding, opening branches here and there. But he got carried away with his success, frequently going out and rarely coming home. Listen, Mark, your mom isn't doing well. You should spend some time with her. I'm sure she wants to see you, even if she doesn't say so. Huh? You are there for her, aren't you? I'm busy. No matter how much I pleaded for his mother, Mark didn't listen. I wanted to show our child to my bedridden mother-in-law who didn't have much time left, and I felt guilty that I couldn't do that. I'm sorry we couldn't give you a grandchild yet. Don't say that. I'm satisfied to have a daughter like you, Nancy. My kind mother-in-law was like my real mother, since I lost my parents at an early age. On days when the weather was good, I would take her for walks in her wheelchair, or make nutritious soft-boiled food that she could have with ease. I did my best to make her life comfortable. One day, she called me to her bedside. I'm glad. You're going to have a lovely daughter soon. She'll be born around the time Jasmine will bloom, so name her Jasmine. I would be delighted if that's true. I was puzzled by my mother-in-law's strange words, thinking that maybe her sickness was causing her to hallucinate. Not long after, she passed away, leaving me utterly devastated. I had been by her side every day for the 3 years since we got married. Not long after the funeral, I discovered I was pregnant. The due date was in July, the season for Jasmine. Just as my mother-in-law said, it happened, and I was stunned, but more so, I was overwhelmed with joy. I couldn't wait for Mark to come home, so I could share the news. Mark, listen! I'm pregnant! Wait, really? I'm not good with kids. I don't think I want any right now. Hey, are you being serious? If you want to have one so bad, go ahead. But I'm not taking care of it. You'll have to raise it on your own. You're deciding to have it, so you better figure out the finances yourself. I was left speechless by his harsh words. I could smell alcohol on him every day when he came home from work. His clothes reeked of sweet perfume. I had a good idea where my husband Mark was spending his time. For him, I was merely a convenient housemaid who took care of his parents. But I couldn't give up on the precious life growing inside me. I managed to get the necessary things using the money I saved from when I was single and the earnings I had from working. And just as my mother-in-law predicted, our daughter was born during Jasmine's blooming season. We named her Jasmine. She was a beautiful child with glowing skin, who resembled my mother-in-law in some ways. Jasmine grew healthily, but she was a unique child. She would laugh and wave her hands when no one was around since she was a baby. When she started speaking broken words around the age of 2, she began talking towards the family shrine. Grandma, do you like Jasmine? Jasmine loves Grandma too. Even when I asked Jasmine who she was talking to, she just smiled. When she was 3, I often saw her deep in conversation with someone in the corner of our loft. Hey, Jasmine, who are you talking to, and about what? Well, Grandma said she will give me her bracelet in the drawer. Grandma did. She said she knitted them using the fabric of her favorite sundress. Intrigued, I opened my mother-in-law's drawer, and there I found a hand-knitted bracelet. Watching Jasmine happily wearing the bracelet, my father-in-law murmured nostalgically, "Ah, those were made from the sundress my wife loved to wear when she was young, so she made them into bracelets. She was skilled at knitting." Surprisingly, it seems that Jasmine can truly communicate with my deceased mother-in-law. But fearing it might bring some harm to her, I decided not to disclose this to anyone. Our days were peaceful, but the good times didn't last forever. Mark was out splurging and abandoned his work. His company was now on the verge of collapsing. We could barely afford our living expenses, relying on the money my father-in-law provided and my earnings. Eventually, Mark had to ask his father for financial help. Thanks to that, his company was somehow able to recover. But would Mark, who continued to lead a carefree lifestyle, change? I was feeling skeptical. One day, Jasmine started saying something concerning. "Daddy is planning to do something bad." "What do you mean?" "I don't know, but Grandma seems worried. She told me to be careful." I didn't quite understand what she meant, but her words lingered in my mind. What kind of trouble could Mark get into? Is it something related to his company? A woman? Money? I thought about it, but without any evidence, I couldn't confront him. But just to be safe, I started carrying a voice recorder. And I told my daughter not to tell her father that she could see her grandmother. It was because I had a vague feeling of unease. Then I found numerous receipts from strip clubs and bars while going through Mark's stuff. Despite the company's financial struggle and even after asking his father for help, his habit of going out hadn't changed. I also found a note saying, "Consult the gang about the plan." What was the gang referring to? If what my daughter says is true, my mother-in-law has been warning us. It might be indicating that danger is approaching for me and Jasmine. I got shivers running down my spine. For several weeks afterward, I was on guard, but in the end, nothing more happened. Gradually, my sense of caution was pushed to the back of my mind, and I resumed my daily life. One day, my husband, unusually in high spirits, spoke to me. "Thanks to Dad's assistance, my business is doing better, and we're making greater profits. So, how about we go on a family vacation after a long time?" Long time? More like for the first time. "Oh, is it?" Jasmine was so young. I booked a hot spring near an amusement park in the mountains. Jasmine will surely be thrilled. Is that so? My heart was wavering. Though there are still some doubts about my husband, I couldn't completely ignore the desire to believe him, who was showing his gentle face, like old times. If my husband has genuinely changed his mind, this could be an opportunity to mend our relationship. With this thought, I agreed to the family trip. And as I prepared for the trip, I gradually forgot about what my daughter had said, and was excited about the long-awaited trip. On the day of the trip, I was surprised to see the rental car my husband had borrowed. It was equipped with snow-tread tires, which made me slightly afraid, thinking we were heading into a snowy mountain. But I couldn't refuse at the last minute, fearing it would spoil the trip and my husband's mood. I quietly sat in the back seat of the car driven by my husband, with my daughter. But in hindsight, I should have been more cautious. More than an hour after our departure, it felt like my husband was driving deep into the mountains, saying we were heading to the hot spring. Moreover, there was quite a lot of snow. Soon, we passed by the interstate and started driving on a side road, and I thought something was wrong. "Hey dear, isn't this road strange? Do you think there would be a hotel on a mountain trail that's this off the interstate? Are you sure we're on the right route?" But my husband didn't answer anything and continued driving, his frightening face frowning, looking straight ahead. Feeling anxious, I held my daughter tightly and bit my lip. And then, on the path where there was no road, my husband abruptly stopped the road. "You two are of no use to me anymore. Sleep quietly here." Saying that, my husband dragged me and my 4-year-old daughter out of the car. "Oh, I almost forgot. I'll be taking your phone with me." "Wait, dear!" No matter how much I screamed, my husband ignored me. And the moment he started the car, he turned to us, smirked, and drove away. No way. We were left behind. Snow was falling all around, and we didn't even know where we were in the thick forest. My husband had taken my phone, but I had secretly put a spare one in my backpack. Unfortunately, there was no signal, and I couldn't call for help. Still, from the moment the car left the interstate, I had a bad feeling, and both Jasmine and I were wearing our winter coats and had our backpacks on. Moreover, since it was winter, I had many things packed in my bag, for in case anything happened. Although I thought it would be fine, my daughter Jasmine's words had been lingering in my mind. I had prepared various things just in case, but I never expected this to happen. The wind that blew was as cold as ice, making me shiver down to my core. I took out a disposable hand warmer from my backpack, warmed my body, and calmed Jasmine down by giving her a caramel candy to chew on. Even as I did this, the snow only got worse, and it seemed like we were going to end up stranded, all alone. What should we do? As I was at a loss, Jasmine suddenly shouted out, "Mom! Grandma is saying she's coming over here!" I looked in the direction Jasmine was pointing, but there was nobody there. No, I couldn't see anyone, but it seemed like Jasmine could. "We should do as Grandma says." Jasmine confidently started to walk, and I decided to follow her. After all, she has a mysterious power. That's why I believed we'd somehow make it. I think that's what I wanted to believe. I walked carefully through the accumulating snow, holding Jasmine's hand tightly so as not to slip. "Mom, I see a light! Grandma is telling us to go towards it." Indeed, I could see a light in the direction Jasmine was pointing. We're saved, I thought, feeling like I was about to burst into tears. "Thank you, mother-in-law." I quietly whispered my gratitude to my mother-in-law. Finally reaching a hotel at the foot of the mountains, we decided to rest there to warm up. I had put extra cash in my backpack, so I knew we could stay for a while. And now I began to plan my revenge on my husband. Don't think I'll forgive you for this. I'm going to thoroughly investigate why you wanted us dead, so be prepared. 5 days later, I contacted my father-in-law. My father-in-law was very surprised to hear from me, but when he found out that Jasmine and I were safe, he was very happy and came to pick us up from the hotel. According to my father-in-law, my husband had been telling people that my daughter and I fell into a valley in the snowy mountains and died. I was flabbergasted. On top of that, he apparently said, "We searched, but couldn't find them. It doesn't look like we'll be able to find them until spring. And it's sad to leave it at that, but we're going to hold the funeral first." Despite my father-in-law telling him to wait a little longer, he was going ahead with the preparations. Furthermore, my father-in-law handed me something. With that, I found out a shocking truth. Upon visiting my husband, sure enough, preparations were underway for our funeral. Large photographs of Jasmine and I were being displayed as portraits. Then, Jasmine and I suddenly appeared on the scene. "What? How come?" The relatives helping with the preparations were shocked, almost dropping to their knees. Stunned and staring wide-eyed at us, my husband blurted out a silly voice. Huh? You're alive? Unfortunately for you, we're alive and well. How? You thought we would die as you planned, didn't you? After you left Jasmine and I deep in the snowy mountains. What are you talking about? People around us began to stir. No surprise there. If my husband intentionally left us, even though he told everyone we had fallen into a valley in the snowy mountains, this would be a serious crime. Stop lying! Can you say the same after hearing this? I played an audio from the hidden voice recorder I had. I don't need you guys anymore. Just die here. Mark's voice echoed, and the people present started to stir even more. I never said that. She's making up lies. He tried his best to shut me up, but his face was pale and his mouth was trembling. To finish him off, I played a video from my phone. In the video, Mark said, As planned, I abandoned them in the snow-capped mountains. With the life insurance money from my wife and daughter, my company can recover, and I can also enjoy a luxurious lifestyle. Of course, I'll also repay the loan I took from your group with some extra, so please, wait a little. The video perfectly captured him on the phone with someone in the car. He tried to shut off the camera in a hurry, but it was too late. Everyone was whispering, giving Mark cold, scornful looks. How did this get out? Who was it? I asked your father to copy the footage from the dash cam in the rental car you used. Dad, you abandoned your own son? Why would you side with a complete stranger? Mark said as he confronted my father-in-law. However, it seemed that my father-in-law was very angry, glaring at Mark with a terrifying expression. Well, it's no surprise that he would abandon you. After all, you secretly took out a large life insurance policy on not only Jasmine and me, but also on your father. I wonder, when you mentioned group, did you borrow money from a sketchy organization and then targeted our lives? Unbelievable. My father-in-law stood imposingly, thrusting a life insurance policy he found in Mark's drawer at him and shouting, You were planning to kill me too, weren't you? You wanted all my assets to yourself, didn't you? How dare you call yourself my son? And so, with accusations from his father and evidence piling up, Mark, now cornered with no way out, made a startling statement. Look, everyone ended up alive, so it's all good, right? I was forced into doing this by loan sharks. I had it tough too, so forgive me. Don't make me laugh. There's no way I can forgive you. I'll be reporting this to the police. No way! We're a family! You can let this slide, right? Please? And so, Mark got on his knees and bowed in front of us. My father-in-law and I looked at each other in disbelief. I'm sorry. I'll change my ways. Please forgive me. Spare me from the police. I'll turn my life around. With his forehead rubbing against the floor, shedding tears, snot, and drool, Mark made a truly pitiful sight. There's absolutely no way. I'm utterly disgusted with you. You can go to hell. Mark probably expected his apology to solve the situation, so hearing this, he was shocked. One of the relatives who had been listening to our exchange had apparently reported it to the police, and the police arrived to take Mark away. In the end, with all the evidence against him, Mark was convicted of a serious crime for attempting to take the lives of his wife, daughter, and his own father. he will likely be behind bars for a very long time. My husband's company went bankrupt, and it's clear that his life will be miserable even if he gets out from jail, as his family, including my father-in-law, have all turned their backs on him. Furthermore, his friends who led my husband astray have also been arrested. We obviously got divorced, and I won full custody of our daughter, Jasmine. In addition, at the earnest request of my father-in-law, Jasmine and I formed a special adoption bond with him and received his inheritance as a gift while he's still alive. Now we live with my kind father-in-law. He and I enjoy watching over Jasmine's growth. My father-in-law often tells me, "Find a good man and get remarried. I will give you my blessings." But for now, I have no intention of getting married. I am more than happy with my life right now. The other day, Jasmine whispered in my ear, "Grandma says she's glad, but we can't meet her anymore, so she's saying goodbye." It made me a bit sad, but if it means that there's nothing my mother-in-law needs to protect us from anymore, then I guess it's a good thing. Dear mother-in-law, I will protect Jasmine with everything I have. I made a promise to her today as I placed my hands together in front of her grave.